Alright, today what we're going to be talking about is creating a scientific method infographic. And this is for Mr. Snyder's classroom. What we're going to do is we're going to try to create a project for our scientific method system, and it's going to be used for one of our core standards for 7th grade science. And what an infographic is it's a one-sided sheet of paper. Then what it'll go through is it will outline the 6 steps of the scientific method. First step in that is question. You got to come up with a question. Next thing you got to do is create a prediction, which is called a hypothesis, and use an if-then statement. If I do this, then this will happen. The third step is going to be creating an experimental plan, which basically outlines your step-by-step procedure on what you're going to do. You're then going to analyze your data. So you're going to perform the experiment and then analyze the data. And then you're going to come up with a conclusion where you answer your question and restate your hypothesis if it was incorrect. And the last step is to communicate these results with other scientists around the world. This project will take you 1 week and it will be due September 6, 2013. Now, when you're creating an infographic, it's very important to make sure that you get these 5 key components. Because what an infographic is, it's something to it's designed to get the reader's attention so that they will not have to read pages and pages and pages of information, where they can get the main points out of just reading a short little summary of it. So the first thing you got to do is you got to have your knowledge. Okay, you got to have your research and data. You have to lay it out where it's pleasing to the eye. If it's all jumbled up and hard to read, people aren't going to read it. They're not going to take the time to do it. You got to have a good color schemes, colors that jump out on the page but that don't run together, so that, again, it's pleasing to the eye. And you want to have graphics, good visual pictures that go along with what you're trying to say, because those pictures will draw people in and then they will force them to read what is on the rest of the page. The objectives of this scientific method infographic. First of all, you need to creatively, and I use that word in the beginning for a reason, you must creatively list the 6 steps of the scientific method. If you just go through and go, number 1 is this, number 2 is hypothesis, number 3 is experimental plan, yada yada yada, nobody's going to want to read it. Okay? But if it's creative and it kind of pops off of the page and it's really exciting, people are going to read it and they're going to digest your information that you're trying to get across to them. It's also very important that not only do you just list them, but you kind of explain what each one means. That's the purpose. You get the attention by the headline with, the word question, then you explain how they ask their question. Or you write the word hypothesis and you get their attention by telling them that it's an if-then statement. If I do this, then this will happen. And it's also important to create an infographic that is very pleasing to the eye. Because if it's not, we've already talked about this, but if it's jumbled, it's hard to read, people aren't going to take the time to read it. So that's one of the things about creating this infographic, and it's a different way for you to gain the information and really understand it fully, rather than just being able to reiterate those 6 steps. I want you, if you can explain them and explain them to people and get other people to understand what they are, then you and yourself are going to understand the whole concept of the scientific method. Scoring rubric, like always, we're going to have a 1 through 4 system. We'll start off with a 3 because that's what you're all aiming for. And that is, you have all 6 steps of the scientific method and you accurately explain each step and you put them in the correct order. Okay, now I don't care if they're thrown all over the page on the infographic, but I want them to be in order, where you put number 1 is question, number 2 is hypothesis, so on and so forth. Now, if you don't quite reach and you're at a number 2 and you're not quite all the way to number 3 on your rubric, that means you have all 6 steps, but some of them may not have the correct information. Like you may forget to put that a hypothesis is an if-then statement. Maybe you put that it's just a guess, an educated guess, and you didn't say that it's an if-then statement, because remember, with hypotheses we always are talking in if-then statements. Number 1, which would be the lowest level, is there that you have most of the 6 steps. So you have not quite all of them, but you have, maybe 3, 4, 2, whatever. You have some of the steps. Number 4, which is going above and beyond, which would be great, is that you have all of number 3, which you accurately have the 6 steps and accurately explain what each one means. And then you're also very creative when designing this infographic. The colors are very pleasing to the eye. The format of it is good. It catches your eye, and it's something you really want to read, which is very important when creating these infographics. Here's what you're going to be graded on. You got 3 categories. First one is information, telling the 6 steps, telling what each step means and does. And that's going to be worth 30 points. 10 points is going to be your creativity, how you put it on the page, how you make it pleasing to the eye, and how you grab my attention and make me want to read that infographic. And then the last 10 points, so this will be a total of 50 points for your project, it'll be spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Yes, I know this is not an English class, but you still have to have those correct things on there and making sure that the infographic is good, because if it's not, I'm not going to read it if you have misspellings and incorrect grammar and incorrect punctuation all over the place. Well, you might be asking, well, who cares? It's just I can repeat the steps. That's all I need to know. Why is this even important? The reason that this is important, for one, it's part of our Common Core standards, and if you can just repeat them, that's great. But that doesn't really go in depth like we're trying to do with the Common Core standards. And so if you can obviously tell me the 6 steps, but then explain what each step does, what each step means, you're going above and beyond, and you're going in depth with the scientific method, which is what we are shooting for. Another reason is you use this every day. Whenever you make a decision, you go through and you come up with a question. Or whenever you try to solve a problem, you come up with a question. You form a guess. You perform this experiment. You analyze what happened, you come up with your conclusion, and then you share. And you do this every day when you're trying to solve a problem. And so it's very important that you understand the importance of this, because this is something you're going to use every day of your lives for the rest of your lives. And the other reason pertaining to our classroom, and this is why we start out the year with scientific method, is that it's a process that we're going to use in every single one of our labs that we do this year. You're going to start out every single time we will have a question. We are going to try to answer that question by doing our labs. And then we will hypothesize and perform a procedure, set up a procedure, and set up the experiment, and then perform the experiment and analyze that data that we come up with. And then we're going to form a conclusion. And then in the end, we will share these results, because what we find might be very earth-shattering, and we need to share those results with other scientists. So that is the importance of coming up with this scientific method. And by doing this infographic, I really do think that you will have a better understanding of scientific method. Alright? Again, you have a week to work on this project. Make sure you're spending your time wisely. Make sure you are working very hard at this. And again, make it pleasing to the eye. Don't just list the steps and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row in a column. That doesn't make me want to read it. Make it pop off the page. Alright? Everybody understand? Any questions? Thank you.